In the 1950s, science was the shiny new toy everyone wanted to play with, splitting atoms, exploring space, curing diseases, and in the movies, accidentally creating giant spiders, disembodied brains, and more than one very sarcastic severed head. It was the golden age of science gone wrong, where one botched experiment or stray cosmic ray could turn an ordinary lab project into a bizarre, sometimes deadly mess. So grab your Geiger counter and your most dramatic lab coat, because we're diving into some of the wildest atomic age oddities to ever crawl, creep, or slither onto the big screen. Giant spiders. You either love them, hate them, or wish they would stop peeking at you through the window. In Tarantula, scientists are experimenting with a nutrient that can grow animals to massive sizes, because why not? Unfortunately, one of their test subjects, a tarantula, escapes and becomes, well, the size of a house. The filmmakers went full old school for this one, superimposing footage of an actual tarantula crawling across the landscape. It's simple, but it works, especially if you're already terrified of spiders. Holy cow. The movie builds to a pretty spectacular climax with jet fighters dropping napalm on the oversized arachnid. And fun trivia, one of those pilots in a blink and you'll miss it cameo is a young Clint Eastwood.
Here goes.
Yep, Dirty Harry saved the day from 30,000 feet. The Fly isn't just a science gone wrong movie. It's a full-on nightmare for anyone who's ever accidentally left a window open. Scientist Andre Delam invents a teleportation device, but during a test, a housefly sneaks in and splat. Man and fly are combined at the molecular level. It's part tragic love story, part body horror classic, and part warning to always check your lab for insects before teleporting. Vincent Price's performance as the brother of the doomed scientist adds a perfect mix of class and creeping dread, and the effects still hit hard even today. And that image of the tiny fly head screaming "Help me" at the end, yeah, that haunted audiences for decades. If you think a giant spider or man-fly hybrid is nightmare fuel, Fiend without a face kicks things up a notch with brains. Yep, actual brains with spinal cords that wriggle around like homicidal worms.
Good grief.
The story starts with an experiment in telekinetic energy at a remote Air Force base. The goal? Harness psychic power. The result? Invisible monsters that attack people and suck out their brains and spinal cords. Eventually, the creatures become visible, and that's when things get wild. Stop-motion brains crawling around, making squishy noises, and leaping at people's necks. It's as gross as it sounds, and for 1958, it was shockingly graphic. Fun fact, the British censors hated it so much they tried to ban it outright. Today it's remembered as one of the most original and definitely one of the most ooh science gone wrong movies of the atomic age. If you thought I Was a Teenage Werewolf was wild, the same studio doubled down with I Was a Teenage Frankenstein. This time, a mad scientist decides that regular old grave-robbing Frankensteining isn't edgy enough, so he builds his monster from the body parts of teenagers. The result? A creature with the face of someone who lost a fight with a cheese grater and a personality to match. He's angry, he's misunderstood, and he definitely isn't winning any teen popularity contests. The film leans hard into its lurid title and delivers exactly what you'd expect. Secret laboratories, lots of conspiring, and a monster lurching around like he's late for homeroom. And that final color close-up of the creature's face is one of the most 50s drive-in shocker moments ever put to film. Meet the world's worst boyfriend. After a car accident decapitates his fiancée, a mad scientist keeps her head alive in his lab while he hunts for a new body to attach it to. Romantic, right? This one has everything: sleazy doctors, stripper catfights, monster experiments locked in a closet, and one of the most sarcastic disembodied heads in film history. Jan in a Pan spends most of the movie glaring from a metal tray and secretly plotting revenge with the closet monster.
You want revenge?
It's campy, it's grim, and that constant kill me energy makes it painfully clear. Science should have just let her rest in peace. And that final comeuppance? Let's just say it's one for the drive-in history books. Not every science gone wrong movie has to involve a mutant or a severed head in a pan. The magnetic monster proves that sometimes your villain can just be an atom. In this one, scientists create a synthetic isotope that grows by absorbing energy, like a radioactive Pac-Man, and threatens to knock the Earth off its axis if it isn't stopped. Cue lots of lab coats, Geiger counters ticking like crazy, and people shouting about things like cyclotrons and energy mass conversion as if the world is about to implode. It's more cerebral than some of its monster movie cousins, but it's still tense, atmospheric, and full of that 1950s fear of science gone rogue.
Overdose of radiation.
Plus, it features one of the coolest giant scientific machine sets of the decade, which they actually borrowed footage of from a 1934 German sci-fi film. Recycling at its finest.
Well, think about it.
1 minute, you're a normal suburban husband. The next, you're smaller than your wife's sewing kit. The Incredible Shrinking Man follows Scott Carey, who's exposed to a mysterious radioactive mist and begins shrinking slowly, relentlessly down to insect size.
A ludicrous midget.
What starts as a medical mystery quickly becomes a survival story as he battles house cats, navigates flooded basements, and eventually squares off against a giant spider with nothing but a sewing needle. It's surprisingly poetic for a 50s sci-fi flick, touching on themes of mortality, identity, and humanity's place in the universe. Proof that science gone wrong doesn't always have to end in mass destruction. Sometimes it just ends with you living in a dollhouse. Besides making giant bugs and radioactive mutants, mad science was also busy keeping rich guys' brains alive in jars. In Donovan's brain, a scientist salvages the brain of a recently deceased millionaire and sustains it in a tank with electrodes and nutrient fluid.
It's simple, Frank.
The problem? The brain's not just alive, it's telepathic, and it starts taking control of the scientist's mind, turning him into a puppet for Donovan's unfinished schemes. It's part sci-fi, part psychological thriller, and a reminder that sometimes the monster isn't a mutant crab or atomic octopus. It's a wealthy egomaniac with a second lease on life and no body to slow him down. Some scientists dream of curing disease or unlocking the mysteries of the cosmos. Others, they want to turn back the evolutionary clock just to see what happens. In the Neanderthal Man, a biologist develops a serum that devolves animals and eventually himself into prehistoric forms. The catch? His Neanderthal form looks like a cross between a caveman and a very grumpy Halloween mask. Soon he's prowling the countryside, attacking locals, and generally proving that tampering with evolution is a bad weekend hobby. It's a mix of mad science, monster movie, and unintended comedy. And while the makeup won't win any awards, it's a prime example of 1950s cinema turning a wild idea into a drive-in spectacle.
I told you I'd come back.
What's scarier than a gangster with a grudge? a gangster with a mad scientist on speed dial. In Creature with the Atom Brain, a vengeful mobster teams up with a German scientist who's mastered reanimating the dead with atomic energy.
Closer.
The result? Radioactive zombie henchmen with super strength, dead eyes, and a knack for breaking into places they shouldn't. The police are baffled, the body count rises, and the whole thing feels like a mashup of a crime noir and a horror flick, just with more Geiger counter readings.
Hey, don't watch that class.
It's pulpy, it's weird, and it's a reminder that in the 50s, atomic energy could power anything, from toasters to brain-controlled zombie hitmen who break little girls' dolls. So there you have it, 10 science gone wrong B-movies from the atomic age, when every lab experiment seemed one beaker spill away from apocalyptic disaster. These movies may be cheesy, but they perfectly capture that mix of excitement and dread people felt about science in the 1950s. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this trip down atomic memory lane, and I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully before I start shrinking or mutating.